wish I was back home in Derry.
Good morning, everybody. Today we are going to deal with one of the saddest and most interesting questions in the English language world, which is the Irish question. As you can see from this timeline, the relationships between Ireland and Great Britain, or Ireland and the British, have a long history. So let's start with the very early ages. Ireland was colonized by Christian monks around 400, and the early Christian Gaelic people went on peacefully till the invasion of the Normans. The Normans arrived in Great Britain in 1066 and they moved to Ireland in 1166. Here problems start. From 1166 till 1536, the Norman nobility took the land in Ireland from the Gaelic people, and the Irish Gaelic lords became more and more powerful and detached from the English government. At this moment in history, we should talk about England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, which were 4 different countries. As far as Ireland is concerned, Ireland was a personal papal possession. It was personally owned by the Pope, and there was a lordship of the King of England on Ireland. This made the Irish lords more and more powerful, and this started to become a problem when Henry VIII, with the Act of Supremacy 1534, decided to separate the English Church from the Roman Catholic Church. So from this moment on, we have this division between Protestant and Catholic, which wasn't here before. So we can start talking about issues, conflicts between Protestants and Catholic from the Act of Supremacy onwards. What Henry VIII tried to do was to reconquer Ireland, to take away the power from the Irish lords and concentrate it into his hands. A very sad period in the Irish history, which is too often forgotten by the English and sadly remembered by the Irish, is the Cromwellian War. When in England the revolution broke out that led to the execution of King Charles I, a civil war followed, seeing Puritans led by Cromwell against King loyalists. This war was particularly bloody and violent in Ireland, and it went on from 1649 to 1653. In 1688, there was the Glorious Revolution in England. It meant that after the restoration of Charles II, the nobility in England understood that James II was Catholic and didn't want to leave their privileges. And so they sent him away and called for William of Orange, a Dutchman, a Dutch king, and Queen Anne to come to England and take the throne. They were Protestant, and so they suited the nobility that was ruling in England. However, Ireland, which still had a majority of Catholic population, wanted James II as King of Ireland. And so they invited James to fight for them. Another war broke out, the one between the Orangemen, the military that supported William of Orange, the Dutch Protestant King of England, and the Catholic that supported James II, former King of England, who had been sent away because he was Catholic. They had a conflict, a battle, a showdown. They faced one another in 1690 at the Battle of the Boyne, and William of Orange won. That meant that the Catholic lost many of their rights, such as the right to vote and the right of owning land. So no Catholic had the right to buy land. So from this moment on, 1690 till very recently, Catholics in Ireland were deprived of civil and political rights.
In 1803 we sailed out to sea, out from the sweet town of Derry.
Good. Now let's have a look at what happens in the 19th century. This is the period in which the Irish question develops its true colors. Everything starts with the Act of Union in 1801, when Ireland became part of the United Kingdom. So from this moment on, we have the Irish flag added to the Union Jack. The Union Jack is made by the flag of England, the flag of Scotland, and now also the flag of Ireland is added to the Union Jack. Basically, it happens that Catholics cannot sit in the Westminster Parliament. That means that the 88% of the population of Ireland cannot have a representation in the Parliament. What led to the Act of Union? We already said that since the time of Henry VIII, Ireland had been a personal union with England. There was an Irish Parliament, but this was subject to the restrictions of English government and in fact totally subservient to the English Parliament, United Kingdom Parliament in Westminster. This is a date we cannot miss. In 1798, an Irish rebellion took place against the British rule. The United Irishmen, a group influenced by the ideas of American and French Revolution demanded independence from England, and the British suppressed the rebellion with an incredible death toll between 10,000 and 30,000 casualties. So, in order to keep Ireland under stricter control, the Acts of Union were passed and enforced in 1801. So now Irish representatives could sit in Westminster, but not if they were Catholic. And as I said before, 88% of the population couldn't have any representation in the parliament. Another important fact was what happened in 1845. A blight, a disease, destroyed the crops, the potato crops, and left Ireland on the verge of starvation. Irish politicians, activists, put the blame of this disease, of course not of the disease itself, but the consequences of a bad managing of the disease, onto the British. And so they started to demand for home rule. That means they didn't want to sit in Westminster Parliament, but they wanted to have an Irish Parliament and wanted to be governed by themselves. So let's have a look here, this incredible picture. Here we can see a woman with a green blouse. Green is the color of Ireland, as we have seen. This represents Ireland, of course. Here is a poor family with many children, and this image representing death, of course, because we see a skull under a veil, has a writing on the dress, and it's written blight, famine. The disease that hit the potatoes was also known as the potato blight. On the other side of a river, which we can imagine is the Irish Sea, there is England. And what happens in England? It happens that a man dressed in tweed is playing croquet without any thoughts about the people who were dying in Ireland. The Great Famine, or the Great Hunger, was a period of mass starvation. Starvation is when you don't have anything to eat. Between 45 and 49. During the famine, 1 million people died, and 1 million more emigrated from Ireland, causing the island's population to fall between 20 and 25%. A total disaster for the island. The famine was a watershed in the history of Ireland, which from 1801 and 1922 was ruled directly by Westminster. And it is in this period, following the potato famine, that Irishmen became aware of the necessity of home rule. There was no way to survive to this kind of disasters if the rulers of Ireland were totally disregarding what happened in their land. In order to achieve home rule, there were many initiatives. Demand for home rule was made stronger and stronger by Irish activists. We should remember, for example, Stuart Parnell, who demanded self-government for Ireland. In that period, the Prime Minister in London was Gladstone, and Gladstone was not against the Home Rule. In fact, he wanted to give Home Rule to Ireland, and that unpopular position cost him the position of Prime Minister. So strong was the opposition to Home Rule for Ireland. Another important fact that took place in 1905 was the foundation of the Sinn Féin. Let's go deep into the matter. 1905, they wanted to put pressure on the British government in favor of Irish independence. Sinn Féin is the Gaelic word for ourselves alone. The founder was Arthur Griffith, and he wanted to establish a parliament in Dublin. We have to divide up the role of the Sinn Féin from 1905 up to the Easter Rising, and then its role after the Easter Rising, and then in the Irish War of Independence and in the Irish Civil War. For the time being, let's keep in mind that from 1905, an Irish National Party had been founded by Arthur Griffith. And now let's go to the most complicated situation about Ireland between the two world wars. We have these dates to bear in mind. 1916, that means still during the First World War, there was the Easter Rising. From 1919 to 1921, the Irish War of Independence, which resulted in the Anglo-Irish Treaty, which divided Ireland in the Irish Free State in the south and the Ulster or Northern Ireland in the north. Some Irishmen accepted the treaty, some others didn't, and so a civil war followed from 1922 and 1923. Now let's have a look at what the Easter Rising was. The Easter Rising was an armed insurrection whose purpose was to put end to British rule in England, and the rebellion started on Easter Monday, 1916, and this inspired also the poem by W.B. Yeats, Easter 1916. The uprising was planned to take advantage of Britain's weakness due to the First World War. And in fact, the Irish expected a British defeat during the First World War, and they hoped that this would bring independence to Ireland. The Irish were given logistic and military assistance by the German High Command. About 700 Republicans began the rebellion, seizing key points in Dublin, the most important one being the General Post Office, the GPO. The rebellion went on for 6 days. It was organized by a military command, which was led by James Pearce and James Connolly, among others. Many people died on the spot. Many others were arrested and executed by firing squad later, but each and every one of them became a symbol for Irish independence. England responded with exceptional force, sending thousands of soldiers, the artillery, even a gunboat, and peace, calm was restored after 6 days. On Saturday, the 29th of 1916, Pearce surrendered to the British, and the casualties included 300 people, 60 rebels, and 180 British troops. A formal inquiry by the British authorities followed, and a total of 3,000 people were arrested, mainly part of the Sinn Féin, which was wrongly believed to have been the leader of the insurrection, which didn't prove true. 200 death sentences were issued, but 15 people in total were executed. In the 1918 election, the Sinn Féin party won nearly all the seats except in Ulster, but instead of going to Westminster, they set up an Irish parliament in Dublin called the Dáil, and they once more proclaimed an Irish republic. In 1919, the Irish Volunteers became the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, and prepared for war, which began during Easter 1920. The war was only ended with the establishment of the Irish Free State in 1921 under the leadership of Eamon de Valera as a dominion of the empire, while the 6 counties of Ulster remained part of the United Kingdom, with their own parliament in Belfast. This partition of the country led to future violence and the tragic events of the 60s and 70s, which are known with the name the Troubles. It was only in 1948 that the official Republic of Ireland Act put an end to Commonwealth membership of the Irish Free State with the United Kingdom.
In 1803 we sailed out to sea, out from the sweet town of Derry. For Australia bound, if we didn't all drown, and the marks of our feathers we carried. In our rusty iron chains we sighed for our wains, our good woman we left in sorrow. As the mainsails unfurled, our courses we whirled on the English and thoughts of tomorrow. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. At the mouth of the foyle bid farewell to the soil, as down below decks we were lying. Oh, Doherty screamed, woken out of a dream by a vision of bold Robert dying. The sun burned cruel as we dished out the gruel. Dan O'Connor was down with a fever. 60 rebels today, bound for Botany Bay. How many will meet their receiver? Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry. Oh, I wish I was back home in Derry.